So I don't know about you guys, but to me it really feels like we can't find any sort of consistency at the quarterback or wide receiver position right now. There's quarterback changes either from injuries to guys like Joe Burrow or Matt Stafford or Derek Carr, or just horrible quarterback play from a guy like Zach Wilson, totally tainting Garrett Wilson's value in fantasy football right now. Every single week, the wide receivers look different. There's guys in totally different tiers and in totally different stratospheres as far as where they're ranked at. So this week, we need to continue preparing for the Week 12 fantasy football season, and I'm going to be giving you the top 30 wide receiver rankings for Week 12 fantasy football. And real quick, guys, I'm still giving away a ton of these FFN hats right here, and all you need to do to qualify to get one for yourself is to go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and go down there in the comments below and give me your hottest take for Week 12 fantasy football. So please go down there, drop a like, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. Let's go ahead and just dive right into this right now. So Tyreek Hill is still sharing a tier with somebody else. And Tyreek Hill I still have at number 1. And there's a lot of reasons for it. I mean, Tyreek Hill, you can see the numbers on the screen. Like, it doesn't matter who he plays. And this week, he has a tough matchup versus the New York Jets, specifically against Sauce Gardner. This is not an easy matchup by any stretch of the imagination here for Tyreek Hill. It really just doesn't matter. This guy is just so consistent. He's so consistently good. He's so consistently explosive. He's already got over 1,200 receiving yards. This guy is just an outstanding player. And Keenan Allen is really having just incredibly one of his best seasons, if not his best season ever, in his 30s. Like, Keenan Allen looks as fresh as ever. He's obviously as important as he ever has been. He's been absolutely important because no Mike Williams. Quentin Johnston is not good. Justin Herbert has always preferred to throw to Keenan Allen, and it just continues right now. I mean, every single week. It's so funny. I doubted him last week. I had him ranked at like number 7 last week, and I received flack for it, and it turned out to be for really, really good reason. Keenan Allen, my reasoning last week was that he was injured. He was coming into the week injured, and I did not like that particularly. It didn't even matter. Keenan Allen is just tremendous. He's taking on the Ravens this week. Again, it doesn't matter. He's just simply too important. Justin Herbert is playing great football, and Keenan Allen is following suit. A.J. Brown here at number 3. A.J. Brown is obviously coming off a really bad performance against the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday night in Week 11. A.J. Brown, to me, doesn't scare me because of the fact that A.J. Brown, this is so similar to what happened at the beginning of the year. Remember the first 2 weeks of the season, and A.J. Brown was disappointing to the point where people thought they should sell A.J. Brown for Devonta Smith. Well, I would like to ask those people a question. Has it turned out well? Because even though Devonta Smith was the better receiver the other night, A.J. Brown has been clearly, by far and away, the best receiver in Philadelphia. You can see the numbers on the screen that he's putting up. He simply belongs no lower than this, even when he's taking on the Buffalo Bills, who do have a very stout defense. It doesn't really matter to me. A.J. Brown gonna rebound, no doubt about it, because he's simply too important to this team to not rebound. Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, both playing on Thanksgiving Day this week. And I can't, first of all, one of my favorite days of the year is Thanksgiving. And not only because it gets to be with friends and family and, have some good food, but, the games that are on, it's a football day. I absolutely love it. And Amon-Ra taking on the Packers first game of the day, and then CeeDee Lamb taking on the Commanders second game of the day. They're both fantastic matchups. They're both wide receiver ones on their own team. Their numbers are actually very, very similar, as you can see on the screen. They're both two different types of players, I would say, but they're both getting very similar results. They're both just tremendous players in fantasy right now. They both belong in the top 5 on Thanksgiving Day. We're going to see some big turkey legs handed out to those guys. Justin Jefferson, I continue to have him in these rankings right now because of the fact that there's always a possibility he comes back any week now. Now, I did read a report earlier before I started filming today that Justin Jefferson was questionable heading into this week and that they might actually sit him out again before their bye week next week. So it wouldn't surprise me if they went ahead and sat Justin Jefferson again. But the simple fact is that if he's there, he's going to rip up the Chicago Bears just like Amon-Ra St. Brown did last week. Justin Jefferson's just too tremendous of a player to not have in here, even if he's not at 100%, which, by the way, he said he's not coming back unless he's 100%. Justin Jefferson has to remain inside the top 10 if he has a shot at playing. Davante Adams here, number 7. This one feels good. This one feels really good. I've been saying for weeks and really months, don't waver on Davante Adams. Now, I had to rank him down several spots for the past several weeks. He fell outside my top 15 at one point. And really, I think that Davante Adams, what it ultimately comes down to is that with Josh McDaniels, he was starting to lose volume. Now that he is gone, and it's Antonio Pierce's show, Antonio Pierce said it last week leading into the week, I'm not stupid. I need to target Davante Adams. Not only is he right, but it's so great for us to hear as fantasy managers because of the fact that Davante Adams is getting 14 to 10 targets per game again. And with that kind of target share, I don't care who he takes on. He's taking on the Chiefs this week. With that kind of target share, this guy is going to hit a big play just like he did in week 11. I've got Mike Evans here at number 8. Mike Evans here at number 8, taking on the Indianapolis Colts, is just, I'm so impressed with Mike Evans this year. You can see the numbers on the screen, like, from a target perspective, from a reception perspective, it's not true wide receiver 1 volume. What he does with that work, though, is so efficient because he's such a big play threat. And him and Baker Mayfield actually have shown pretty good chemistry this year because the reality is Baker Mayfield does have a good deep ball. That's Baker Mayfield's strength in this league. So I think that honestly it just continues this week against the Colts defense because Mike Evans has shown no signs of slowing down. This guy's having a great season and honestly putting a stamp and making a strong case for a Hall of Fame career here. I've got Jalen Waddle here at number 9 against the New York Jets. So let me just say this right out of the gate. If you did not watch my Monday night live stream, what I got right and what I got wrong, I do those every single week after the particular week. And I said in that video, I've been really big on Jalen Waddle for most of the year. And I consistently tell you guys to keep starting him. And I said it last night, I think he's hurting a lot of people. Now, when you look at the numbers on the screen, like those are not bad numbers. He's still important to the offense. He's still efficient with the work that he gets. Something's not adding up here, and a lot of it has to do with touchdowns. Now, they're taking on the Jets this week. The reason I have him at number 9 is because I think Sauce Gardner is going to be blanketing Tyreek Hill for most of the game. Now, if you look at the Jets and who they've played, typically this season, the Jets have given up more yardage to the second or third wide receiver option than they have the first option because Sauce Gardner is a true lockdown corner. That's why Jalen Waddle's here. I think if there's any week, this is the week Jalen Waddle explodes. And this is basically the last week that I can have Jalen Waddle inside my top 10 because if he doesn't show anything this week, we're going to have a real come to Jesus moment after this week. But I do advise starting him this particular week. I've got Stephon Diggs here, number 10. Taking on the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia. Stephon Diggs has been one of the biggest storylines of the week. He has been so disappointing the past several weeks, and it's been such a weird case with Stephon Diggs. This is a player who was not reporting to offseason activities. This is a player who has had a lot of frustrations leading into the season. This is a player whose brother, Trayvon Diggs, tweeted out the other day that he doesn't even want to be there. He wants to get him up out of there. So, it's tough, man. It really is tough with Stephon Diggs right now. I maintain the fact that he's top 10 because he's seeing the target share still. And one of these weeks, a player like this is going to pop off. I don't know when it is. I don't know if it's going to be this week, but Stephon Diggs from a target perspective and knowing what he can do has to remain inside the top 10 for me personally. Brandon Ayuk and Tank Dell back-to-back here at 11 and 12. Brandon Ayuk taking on the Seahawks, Tank Dell taking on the Jaguars. Their numbers you can see on the screen, they're so similar, it's crazy. Now, the difference here between the two is I think that San Francisco's quarterback is not as good as Houston's. CJ Stroud has become one of the best quarterbacks in the league right out of the gate this year. Brock Purdy's not a bad quarterback. I just don't think that he's as good as CJ Stroud is. Now, Brandon Ayuk is also among many different weapons that Brock Purdy has at his disposal. Tank Dell as well. Brandon Ayuk is quickly becoming the San Francisco 49ers wide receiver 1, and so is Tank Dell. They share that completely in common. They have both separated themselves as the wide receiver 1 at this point. Now, Brandon Ayuk taking on the Seahawks on Thanksgiving night, I think it's going to be a very close game, but there is a simple reality here that with Deebo Samuel in, Brandon Ayuk plays excellent football. And Tank Dell is simply evolving as the wide receiver 1 for CJ Stroud. Tank Dell taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, another divisional matchup. I think there's a lot of things that can happen in these kind of divisional matchups, but Tank Dell to me is separating himself into top 12 wide receiver territory at this point. I've got DJ Moore at 13 here. DJ Moore, I predicted earlier in the week, last week, that he would return to being a good ceiling play with Justin Fields, and that's exactly what happened. He caught a 40-yard touchdown from Justin Fields against the Detroit Lions. DJ Moore has always been the wide receiver 1 of this offense. His ceiling was lowered significantly, though, by a guy like Tyson Bagent. That's just the reality here of what we've dealt with. Now he's taken on, this week, the Minnesota Vikings defense. I don't think that there's a situation here where I can see that DJ Moore won't have at least a decent game because of the fact that he's consistently seeing the targets, and this guy with Justin Fields, regardless of whether you think Justin Fields is a great quarterback, and I don't think he's a great real-life quarterback, the guy has been very good with DJ Moore because DJ Moore is actually a really, really good wide receiver 1. I've got Michael Pittman 1 spot ahead of Devonta Smith, 14-15. Pittman taking on the Buccaneers and Devonta Smith taking on the Bills. So I'm probably going to get some pushback for having Devonta Smith this low out of the gate anyways. Regardless if it was behind Pittman or DJ Moore or Tank Dell, I'm kind of expecting some Devonta Smith pushback. Devonta Smith obviously had the great game the other night. He played very well against Kansas City on Monday Night Football, and it was fun to watch. I mean, he's a really good player. Michael Pittman has been a really good player as well. The difference here between the two is that Devonta Smith's ceiling is better slightly because of the quarterback. Now, look at the target share on the screen. Michael Pittman is dominating the Colts in targets weekly. Michael Pittman is also capable of big plays as well, and he's taking on a more favorable secondary. That's the reason Pittman is 1 spot ahead. I don't blame you if you want to go with Devonta Smith here, but I personally am going with Pittman because he's got the target share on his side and the matchup on his side. I've got Adam Thielen and Chris Olave at 16 and 17 here. Adam Thielen taking on the Tennessee Titans and Chris Olave taking on the Atlanta Falcons. There's no matchup advantage to either of them. They both got great matchups. They're like, that's not the difference here. That's not the issue. I think the issue ultimately falls down here with me that Adam Thielen has just been consistent with his work, whereas Chris Olave, you can see the numbers on the screen. They're both averaging similar amounts of targets per game. Chris Olave has been so inconsistent with his work. And you could blame it on Derek Carr, who, by the way, is still in concussion protocol at the time of this filming. You could blame it on Derek Carr if you want to. I can understand the argument, but it only goes so far with me. Chris Olave has simply not been consistent enough executing on his plays. I've watched the Saints a lot this year. He looks lost on routes. He looks disinterested at times. Those are not good qualities that Adam Thielen does not share. Chris Olave is clearly the better player, without a question. There's no question to me. And Adam Thielen also has the worst quarterback. But Adam Thielen has been more consistent with his work, and his matchup is just as good. So when the matchup is that good, I'm splitting hairs here. And I'm saying that when you look at the numbers, when you watch the two play, Adam Thielen's been the more consistent player than Chris Olave has. Jamar Chase down here at 18. It's so depressing, guys. Taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers in Cincinnati. Obviously, we all knew that Jamar Chase was going to fall. No Joe Burrow. No upside. Jamar Chase found the end zone after Joe Burrow left. And you know what? That's great for him. That's excellent. The ultimate problem here lies with Jamar Chase that it not only is it hard to tell exactly what his ceiling is going to be week to week now with a new quarterback, but it's also hard to tell what the involvement is going to be week to week and who this particular quarterback, Jake Browning, prefers to throw to. Obviously, Jamar's the best. Every quarterback has their preferences. It's just a bad situation all in all. I've got DK Metcalf here at number 19, one spot above Christian Kirk. 19, DK Metcalf taking on the 49ers Thanksgiving night, and Christian Kirk taking on the Houston Texans in Houston this weekend. So, DK Metcalf has finally, in my opinion, separated himself from Seattle. And I know that I've been getting a lot of flack all year, and really for the past several years, about my takes on DK Metcalf. It seems to me that DK Metcalf has evolved as the wide receiver one in a clear fashion. He's consistently leading this team in targets now. We all knew that he was the bigger play, bigger boom play type of guy between him and Tyler Lockett. Now with Jackson Smith-Njigba in the fold, it definitely complicates things to a certain extent here, but it doesn't complicate it enough to the fact that DK Metcalf is still clearly the wide receiver one in this offense. Taking on the 49ers defense, that's why he's this low. He actually would have been higher this week if he was taking on a team like Atlanta, like Tennessee, like Pittsburgh. That's not his reality this week, though. Whereas Christian Kirk, bad week last week, and Calvin Ridley was the guy. I'm sure I'm going to get pushback on this one as well, but Christian Kirk to me is still the better option week to week than Calvin Ridley is. More consistent target share, better chemistry with Trevor Lawrence. The reality is that Christian Kirk against the Houston Texans, who have been very vulnerable to wide receivers this year, I think has a rebound game. I've got Nico Collins at 21 here, taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Nico Collins, as I admitted on my Monday night live stream, I'm willing to admit that Tank Dell is the wide receiver one and not Nico Collins. That does not mean that Nico Collins is not a good fantasy option. He still 100% is. He had a good fantasy week last week. He's still a very good option. Why? Because he's a good player, number one. And two, he's got a great quarterback throwing him the ball. I want a Houston Texans receiver. Either way you cut it. And Nico Collins against the Jacksonville Jaguars this week, while the matchup is not great, the quarterback is. Nico Collins still inside the top 25 for sure. Courtland Sutton continuing to just climb his way up the rankings here. Taking on the Cleveland Browns this week. Let me tell you this. If Courtland Sutton was not playing the Browns, there's a strong case to be made to put him over a guy like Christian Kirk at 20. Courtland Sutton, to me, the matchup is no good here, obviously, versus the Browns. But I gotta be honest here. I've been watching the Denver Broncos very closely over the past couple of weeks, and I very rarely call a player a touchdown lock on any given week. Courtland Sutton is about as close as it gets right now to being a touchdown lock. And I can confidently say that because the majority of the time, touchdowns are very unpredictable. But when your red zone usage is as frequent as his is, it's not unpredictable. Courtland Sutton is consistently the target number one in the red zone for them, and good for them for figuring it out. Sean Payton knows he's got a 6'4", 220-pound physical wide receiver at his disposal in the red zone. It works perfectly with Russell Wilson. Courtland Sutton's ceiling is not high from a yardage per game perspective and a receptions per game perspective, but this guy is honestly, I'm super confident in having this guy as a touchdown lock in almost every single week. This week it may be a little bit different against the Browns, but still to me, it's just a situation where I look at this and I'm like, this guy has found the end zone so many times this season, and it's because he's a consistent red zone option for them. I've got Puka Nacua at 23 here, taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Now, it must be stated here that Puka Nacua is also day-to-day in addition to Cooper Kupp, who we will discuss in a little bit later. Puka Nacua is day-to-day with a shoulder injury. I have not seen any indication one way or the other on if he's going to play against the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. So, Puka Nacua to me, I think that from what I saw on Sunday when they were playing the Seattle Seahawks is that Cooper Kupp's injury is probably a little bit more serious because it's an ankle injury. I think Puka Nacua comes out of this situation as the wide receiver one for maybe the rest of the season. And the matchup is obviously very good against the Cardinals. So, Puka Nacua, it's hard to rank him this week because of the fact that we just don't know exactly what's going to happen with this situation and with his injury. But Puka Nacua, if he is out there playing, he definitely deserves a spot inside the top 25. DeAndre Hopkins, Marquise Brown, Amari Cooper at 24, 25, 26. Hopkins taking on Carolina, Hollywood taking on the Rams, and Amari Cooper taking on Denver. All of these guys share one thing in common. They all share in common the fact that they're the perceived wide receiver one. I would say that DeAndre Hopkins and Amari Cooper are the real wide receiver ones. Marquise Brown is in a weird spot right now where we don't know what to expect week to week from him. Kyler Murray has not been very fond of getting the ball to Marquise Brown in a lot of situations this year. And I get it. It's only a 2-game sample size. I still have faith that he will rebound, but the reality is 1 catch the first week back with Kyler, 2 catches last week. Ceiling's not really there right now with him. It's hard to tell because DeAndre Hopkins taking on the Carolina Panthers, matchup is good. Matchup's good for Hollywood Brown. Matchup not as great as you may think for Amari Cooper. But Amari Cooper is a big play guy. DeAndre Hopkins is still a big play guy because he can get in the end zone, and Will Levis is a cannon. Hollywood Brown, Kyler Murray's got a cannon. He just hasn't found the opportunities yet. They're all very close to me. You can kind of rank these guys how you want to. I prefer to have them Hopkins, Hollywood, and then Amari Cooper. Jordan Addison at number 27. I said it weeks ago when Kirk Cousins went down. Jordan Addison's ceiling is going to drop. And that's exactly what's happened. And it's not because Josh Downs is not a good quarterback. I'm sorry, not Josh Downs. Josh Dobbs. It's not because he's not a good quarterback. He certainly is a good quarterback. The problem is that his ceiling is just not as high as Kirk's was. Kirk could throw for 300, 400 yards a game. Josh Dobbs can't eclipse 300. That's just not in his DNA. So, Josh Dobbs, there's issues here. There's limitations. The matchup against the Bears is good, but the reality is if Justin Jefferson's back, Jordan Addison honestly drops out of the top 30 entirely. If he doesn't drop, he'll go a little bit higher, but this week, Jordan Addison is... the upside just simply is not there. I've got Garrett Wilson at 28 here. Garrett Wilson, it's so hard to deal with him right now, and it's not his fault. He's such an elite player. It honestly takes the life out of my voice talking about Garrett Wilson because he's such an elite player. I wish that he had a better situation, but he doesn't. Garrett Wilson is simply hampered by bad quarterback play, and they made a change this week. Who knows how that's going to turn out for them. And they're taking on the Miami Dolphins, so he's got a lockdown corner he's going against with Jalen Ramsey, who had a great game in Week 11. Garrett Wilson, wide receiver 1, gets the wide receiver 1 target share. That's why he remains inside the top 30, but geez, the upside is so low, and it's so unpredictable what his floor is going to be week to week from an actual production level. Cooper Kupp and Deebo Samuel rounding out the top 30. Cooper Kupp, like I said, I think that there's a good chance he doesn't play, but I have no idea if he's going to ultimately or not. Cooper Kupp is in a situation where he's got an ankle injury. He's day-to-day. Even if he does play, it hasn't been good with Puka Nacua there. Cooper Kupp is just in a bad spot right now, and he's taking on the Arizona Cardinals, which is a good matchup, but I need to see more from Cooper Kupp, and honestly, I don't know if we're going to this year. I think he may be, if he's not done, he's not going to be productive much longer in this year. I have a lot of issues with Cooper Kupp right now. And Deebo Samuel is the ultimate weapon for the San Francisco 49ers offense that ultimately just doesn't have that high of a ceiling right now. That's just the reality with Deebo Samuel. Like, this guy opens up so much for this offense, but at the same time, like, they just don't use him that much because he opens up so many opportunities for everybody else. Perfect decoy in this offense. Still has upside to a certain extent because he's got a great offensive coach and a great offensive team, but the upside is capped for Deebo Samuel. And as I do at the end of every single receiver rankings video, I give you my favorite underdog wide receiver option to play for this particular week. And it may sound obvious, it may sound like it's overkill. I'm going with the obvious choice again. He was one spot outside the top 30, and it's Jayden Reed. Jayden Reed of the Green Bay Packers taking on the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving Day. I love Jayden Reed. Jayden Reed, I've talked a lot about over the weeks. This is a very athletic player who's fast, athletic, agile, can run the ball, can receive out of the slot and outside of the hashes. This is a great player that the Green Bay's got, and he's honestly their best wide receiver at this point. And Green Bay's got a creative offense to get him the ball. 2 straight good performances from Jaden Reed. I think it becomes a third on Thanksgiving Day versus the Detroit Lions. So let me know what you think of the rankings in the comments below and what questions you need answered before Week 12 fantasy football. And if you want to see the top buy low candidates before Week 12 fantasy football, click on this video right here.